shit. Ah, fuck. Well, here we go again, folks. Hey Heretics, it's your boy the Warp Forge, straight from Thanatos and in your walls on the 23rd bazillionth time to record this one with all the Night Lord cringe. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who participated in the poll and the community post. It's greatly appreciated and I thank everyone for their continued engagement. It really does drive the dopamine levels to strive and do further and better. Okay, with that being said and done, I've tried going off the rails for this loosely, but every time it just boils down to a lot of pauses and loop-de-loop roundabouts on the same thing, and that's the same mentality I have for this update. Before we go into the snark, critiques and how do we in Midnight Clad deal with these changes, I really want to make a disclaimer here. I like 10th edition. I like 10th edition. I really like 10th edition. I really want to like it. I like it more than 9th edition. I enjoyed 9th edition until Adeptus Mechanicus and Drukhari arrived, and then it was just power creep into spamming mortal wounds, and that was the story of 9th edition. 10th had a very rocky start, but after that brief period I found it refreshing and a breath of fresh air. Saying that, 10th edition is not perfect and this can contribute to a 33-page document in all red. I'll be honest in saying that I haven't read through the document and I probably won't until I have to print it out before a tournament, so I'll be very brief on those rules going from what I've read from various Discord servers. The pivot rule is an alpha playtest rule that they've even said themselves from the community post that they're not sure how this will pan out, so either it gets heavily refined by the next Dataslate or it'll just get dropped. It's not as though we haven't seen exploits previously seen with devastating wounds and mortal wounds at the start of the edition, so to me it's same shit another Tuesday. The same can be said for the reinforcement strap and the overall stratagem changes. On one hand, guard players are seething and I totally understand why, but at the same time they also get 4 detachments for what is effectively a man with his rifle, while our kill team doesn't even count as a new unit despite having a model that's very much illegal to play as just legionaries. The guy with the twin lightning claws, you know that guy? Can't play him. The closest you can get is making your champion having 2 accursed weapons, but there's no real point, there's no real reason why you would do that. It's basically just a waste of time to actually contemplate that. So to me, it does not bother me. They can play more bodies if push really come to shove. Guard players will manage and carry on as normal. The only upside I find to the stratagem changes overall is that now that the stratagem restrictions have been lifted for the Chaos Lords, using Scream of Descent for free sounds like a really fun prospect. Now for the meat you've all come to chew on. Chaos Space Marines. This bit may be a bit briefer than previous video in January, but that's mainly because Games Workshop have repeated the same mistake again as they initiate the Rites of Madness and repeating the same shit as before. So if you saw the January video, you'll know the whole shebang about obliterators I kept peddling on. How in their desperate attempt to curb the rise of a unit dominating meta, they made it near unplayable because they fixed the unit by making it become swingy again by changing the stratagems to stop the reroll of consistency. And then they increased the points, and that was excessive. Now, I want you to think of that excess. How useless it was, how it made that unit unplayable. And now I want you to put that excess and widen it to most of the codex. Why? Because that's exactly what's happened. Every tank that was performing relatively well to heavy lifting has had the 10 to 20 point increase. Accursed cultists went up and raptors and warp talons also went up in points. This is a massive problem because it shows with Games Workshop that they didn't learn from the mistakes in their index. In fact, they believed themselves firmly in the right, as you can probably have guessed. Warp Talons had a problematic rule with the Warp Flame Strike that they fixed as they made it conditional as opposed to the gung-ho teleporteo that the Grey Knight shenanigans they were pulling off. There. That was the Warp Talons fixed. They didn't need anything further, they didn't need anything less. The only thing making them ridiculous was making them just teleport whenever they felt like it to have ultimate movement control. And then they increased the points. For fuck's sakes. Hadaway jump marras. This is where we are reminded of Games Workshop pressing that big ol' panic button and overreaching and preempting the next dominant meta, and this time it's even worse. There are a lot of people scratching their heads at the points increase in Raptors. They don't need to scratch their heads that hard, because I'll tell you exactly why that's happened. Some people are theorising it's to match with the jump assault intercessors, but it's not even that. Not even that. It's to preempt a possible counter-meta to the direction Pariah Nexus wants you to play. With Dread Talons, you can deep strike a 4 metal gun 10 Raptors unit within 3 inches of Screaming Descent to deal a -2 leadership instant battle shock to a unit, preferably on infantry on an objective. It can also extend to mounted units too. It's very clear that in the direction of Pariah Nexus wants you to play is battle line to perform actions to sit on primaries while scoring secondaries, and Dread Talons is an antithesis to that. It is designed to lock you out of action interaction, objective control and stratagem use. It is designed to be a counter-meta to what most folks may play into with the edition or season. Turning a Space Marine leadership from a 6 to 8+ is a massive changer that offers a distinct playstyle and forces opponents to interact in an alternate way with their lists. Games Workshop felt an over-pressing need to preempt this, and so raised the points on Raptors. The biggest issue, the biggest flaw, the biggest Achilles heel with what Games Workshop has not realised is that the playstyle requires a high level of nuance and model placement to make it work. It is not a list or playstyle that you can just slap on a board and expect an instant win. You will lose more games when you start with this detachment because it requires more time to really understand the process and understand playing this detachment. This detachment is Glasshammer. Raptors are only 3+, a 2 wound Astartes unit with a 12-inch movement and the fly keyword. It has its perks, but like all Marines, you dedicate a volume of fire to it, they whiff, they die. Games Workshop doesn't really acknowledge this in their anxiety-ridden look at Chaos Space Marines who just hit that good old panic button in fear of the feels bad for the opponent with no respect or appreciation for what they made in the first place for the players that do want to play Dread Talons. When I come to make lists, every time I make a list, I fill out the core of what I need for Dread Talons to get the list working. I throw in the Raptors, the Noise Marines, the battle line, the characters, the dedicated transport, all to make the playstyle functioning and legal. That takes me to around 1,500 to 1,650 points. It's hard for me to put in much, if any, anti-tank in the list, which is a problem in of itself that Games Workshop have now exasperated. When you cut back on units for the detachment, it's just far too difficult to try and get this engine to function. If you cut back on the units that force battle shock, you're losing out on playing the detachment's playstyle, which undermines itself and the reasons why you're playing the detachment in the first place. If you cut back on any anti-tank, you're going to struggle on taking on the norm of mechanised warfare. If you cut back on the battle line, then you're not really playing to the primary needed to score to win games. List making has become nothing more than an Ouroboros cycle of pain and, to a degree, a chore. In my modifications in list building, I've dialed back on the battle line, and in all honesty, I don't really feel comfortable playing many of these lists now. Every list I'm making just feels far too Glasshammer to be playable. When you're telling me a minimum squad of Raptors is more expensive than a minimum squad of Meganobs, who, after the nerfs they received, are still a fine and versatile unit that will hurt anything touches an aggression, then I'm turning some serious eyebrows. In the overall grand scheme of things, what I project is 2 points. The first is that there will be a drop in Chaos Space Marine players. It won't be as bad as Custodes, but a big drop nonetheless because they aren't one of the side factions. Chaos Space Marines have been there since 2nd edition, they're a core part of many 40k players' playing experiences, and they're a very much well popular and well loved faction all in all. You're never going to see them completely disappear temporarily like Adeptus Mechanicus or Custodes. or even Genestealer Cult for the matter. Secondly, those who do stay will double down on 3 detachments. The age of experimenting is now over for Chaos Space Marines. Until there are points cuts for units, the age of experimentation has now died on the 20th of June 2024. The first is that people will double down on Renegade Raiders. Yes, this detachment took a hit in Pariah Nexus, but it won't slow down the Red Corsairs. Although Rhinos can no longer advance and make actions, the detachment still plays well into the direction that Pariah Nexus wants you to play in when you look at their stratagems and their detachment rule, which adds to the direction of playing the Pariah Nexus season. The second that will be played is the Soul Forge packs, because it incentivizes aggression and the use of mechanized warfare that plays very well into 10th edition at the time of recording. The last but not least you will see is pack-bound zealots, and that's because there are folks who want to chase consistency of the main army rule, the Dark Pacts critting on 5+ with core rules, and that still plays well for folks. The Dark Pacts rule still has 2 amazing core rules that people will want to play in and want to make more consistent to buff the baseline of every unit they have, and that is what you will see in the list direction for people who want to make pack-bound zealots work. The reason you won't see the others as much, if at all, is because the main reason being that the other detachments cannot internally compete with the efficiency of the top 3. The others are situational and require more finesse than the top 3 explained, and most folks are just looking for the easiest way to go bonk with, because Games Workshop tends to overlap the easiest internal playstyles with the most efficient. Some people are seeing Chaos Cults as a rise in the tournament circuit. That will be a minimum. With the win rate percentage, you'll see a minimal amount of people play Chaos Cult, and that all depends on the swing. Less people means the win ratio is more swingy. If people get high win rates, the Chaos Cult will be exasperated in how high its win percentage is. Meanwhile, if there's a lot of losses, you'll see a heavy swing to heavy losses. So I don't really count Chaos Cults as much. You'll see them appear, but I don't think you'll see them appear en masse. So this leads to asking, where will I go? Where will I stand in Midnight Clad? Honestly, I really want to show off what Dread Talons can do. I want to show off the 8th at their best, and I want to show the world the teeth we underdogs have and can bite hard with. Saying that, as you've probably guessed, the wind has been taken out my sails for now. With the current summer weather, I feel the need to just sit back at the kitchen table and hobby and record some hobby progress for you all. Because by the Emperor, I have a serious backlog here. Honestly, I have so much to edit now. I cannot wait to get it all edited, put it through on private on YouTube, and then slowly schedule out on a weekly basis. It's going to be magnificent. I'm going to absolutely love it, and hopefully you will too. For the game, there's a lot to go back to the drawing board and rebuild my Night Lords before I can present them in their first game as on their first battle report on this channel. I'm really looking forward to making battle reports again, and I feel so close I can taste it. After getting the boys in Midnight Clad done, it's just making the terrain, as that is the only obstacle, so I can make immersive boards that you'll love. I keep saying it over and over again, and I still am dedicated to this singular goal where I want to make weekly battle reports with maining our boys in Midnight Clad. Sure, there'll be other armies along the way, hopefully Guard and Black Templars, but I really want to show off Night Lords as best they can. They're my boys, they're the ones who have captured my blackened heart, and the ones I just want to show off to the world in their mad kit-bashed glory. Anyhow, what's your take on the new changes? Where are you taking your merry band of murderers and psychopaths? Let me know in the comments below. This is the Warp Forge signing out, and remember, keep on forging.